Health rocks. Inspired to be substance free.
Hi. So today we have a different location. We're going to talk about making decisions, and I have a big decision to make. So this room has been all cleared out, and we need to repaint it. My daughter has decided maybe she's a little bit too old for brown horseshoes on her wall, and she's thinking that she would like some form of gray. I know these all look really similar, but these are the ones that she brought home. So we have to decide what gray we're going to paint her room. So, this is a big decision, and this is a decision that we're all going to have to live with for quite a while, or, at least 5 or 10 years maybe. I really don't like to paint that much. So, we have to think about what color we're going to paint this room. Now, there is a whole decision-making process that we can go through. So, there are steps to go through when you start thinking about making a decision. So, the first step is to identify the decision that you're wanting to make. Well, we want to decide on a color to paint this room, somewhere between a really light gray and a darker gray. So that's identifying the decision. The next step, we need to brainstorm options. Well, my daughter has already done that. She went and she picked up some paint samples from the store, so she has some ideas. So these are her decisions, her options that she's brainstormed. The next thing we need to do is we need to think about the good and the bad of each one of these decisions. So we want to think about the pros and the cons for each one of these decisions. Now, I know picking paint color, you're thinking, well, what are the pros and cons of those decisions? It's a color, and you're absolutely right. So there are not very many pros and cons to think about with this, other than if you choose a color that's too dark, it's going to make the room seem kind of dark. It's not a really big room. It's a good sized bedroom, but it's not really huge. If you pick a really light color, it may seem like the walls are just white. This light gray is not that different from white. So we have to think about those kind of things. There's not really a whole lot of other pros and cons to think about the color of this, other than, if you go something really dark, it's harder to paint over. You want to think about how much else am I going to have to change the room once it's painted. Do I need to change the bedding? Do I need to get new curtains? All of that kind of thing. It's hardwood floor, so we don't have to worry about it matching carpet. So once you get to that point, you've got your pros and your cons. Then the next step is to think about consequences, both long-term and short-term consequences from your decisions. Again, we're painting a room, so short-term consequences, you may not like it. Long-term consequences, you're going to live with it for a little bit longer. So that's something to think about. Finally, make your choice. Look at your options, look at your pros and your cons, look at the short-term and long-term consequences, and then make your decision. So now let's think about another decision, a decision that you and I make every day: what to wear. So living in Maryland, sometimes things can be a little bit tricky. What the temperature is in the morning may not be what it's going to be in the afternoon. It's not what it's going to be in the evening, especially if we're in transition seasons such as spring or fall. So you may have to think about wearing layers. You also need to think about what your plans are that day, where you're going to be. Are you going to be outdoors a lot? Are you going to be inside? Are you going to be going inside and outside, back and forth? Are you going to be doing something that you need to have good walking shoes? Are you going to be moving things? All of these different things you have to think about when you're deciding what to wear. So once you're thinking about, what the weather's going to be, you have a pretty good idea what the temperature is going to be, you're thinking about what your actions are going to be that day, what you're going to be called to do, then you can start narrowing down your options as to what to wear. If it's a transition season, such as spring or fall, the temperatures can vary greatly through the course of the day. So you might want to think about wearing layers. Things that in the middle of the afternoon, maybe you can take off your sweater or your sweatshirt or something like that and have something short sleeve underneath, so when it's warmer, you can still be comfortable. If you know that you're going to be outside a lot, probably not a good day to wear a skirt or dress slacks. You probably want to have on something else that you're going to be more comfortable in being outside. So these are all things that might go through our minds as we're trying to decide what to wear on a given day. And whether we realize it or not, we're actually going through those decision-making steps every day with the decisions that we make. Now, granted, you may not go through all those steps when you're deciding what to eat for breakfast, because really, what are the long-term consequences or the pros and cons of that? However, when you start looking at your future, what you plan on doing in your future, are you going to go to college? Where are you going to go to college? Are you going to go to a trade school? What are you wanting to do when you finish high school? What's your next step? Now that's a decision that can have many more consequences, both short-term and long-term. And there are pros and cons to be looked at with those decisions also. So learning these decision-making steps is a good skill to have for everybody, regardless of where your stage in life is. Right now, your parents may be making a lot of decisions for you, but you're beginning to get to an age where you're starting to make more decisions on your own. So you're going to need these tools to be able to make sure that you're making wise decisions and good choices. Now, something else to think about when we're making decisions: who's influencing those decisions? When you go to make a decision, do your friends or your peers influence the decision that you're going to make? Let's go back to thinking about what you're going to wear. So you're getting up in the morning. What your clothing choices are those influenced by who you hang out with, the kind of friends that you have? If you were planning on going out to the movies with a group of your friends, you would really start to think carefully about what you want to wear. You don't want to wear something that could have you made fun of by your friends. You don't want to wear something that they are going to think is silly or stupid. So all of those things are going to be going through your head. Those influences can come into play regardless of what the decision is you're making. So thinking about something else, not just the clothes you're wearing, think about maybe what you're going to do after school. Does that get influenced by your friends? Do you have sports practice? Do you need to go home and do your homework? Do you have chores to do? Are you planning on just going and hanging out with your friends? Maybe you're going to go to the mall. So these things are, again, influenced by your friends. Maybe you have a test to study for, but your friends don't, and they're trying to push you. They want you to go out instead of going home and studying for that test. So this is where those outside influences come in. Your parents and your family may have influence on you, on your decisions. And decisions are made within families in different ways. In my family, when it comes time to big decisions, we try to make those decisions as a family, and thinking about where we're going to go on vacation or something like that. My daughter decided to paint her room, and we told her that was fine. She had to pick the color. She's got things all taped off, and she's ready to go in here. Now, my daughter is 20, so we can just turn her loose and let her do this to her room. Maybe you can see why she decided she didn't want horseshoes on her room anymore. But you are influenced by outside forces, people, the situation that you're in. So those are things that you also have to take into consideration when you're going through that decision-making process. Now, this is a skill that may not come very naturally at first when you start thinking about the steps, but I think that if you just take a moment and think about decisions that you make every day, you'll realize that you're already doing some of these steps unconsciously anyway. So just knowing when it comes time to make those bigger decisions, especially decisions that could have long-term consequences, going through these steps and taking the time to really sit down and think about what the options are, what are the positive and negative for each one of those options, what are consequences, both long-term and short-term for those options, and then going ahead and picking the best option. The more you practice this skill, the easier it will be. This skill set will also help you when you are faced with decisions about whether to try drugs, alcohol, or tobacco products. That's a place that you can really start thinking about the pros and cons and the short-term and the long-term consequences of making those decisions. So I hope that you will think about this, remember the steps, and use these skills to move forward in your life to your own betterment.